Hey Marcel.
Hey Derek, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well.
Good.
Let's get it set up here.
Good deal.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hey Ray, how's it going?
Hey.
Going well.
Good.
So when I share this, I remember there was a way, Jerry actually mentioned how to do it last time, where you can have it take up the whole screen, but not, where you can show the slideshow without taking up the whole screen.
Oh yeah, I think there's like a presentation mode. Maybe if you click slideshow there.
Or is it review?
No, just the slideshow to the side.
On the the top bar thing.
Ah, I see. Yeah. And then presenter view.
Well, presenter view will, if you've got two screens, then you can see like this show and the other.
What do you guys see when I do this?
Do we see the presenter notes and stuff?
Oh, you do? Okay.
I would just say play from start, right? That's probably, I mean, is there a reason that doesn't work?
That works as long as you can see that, because
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect.
I have another doc open with some notes, so
Oh, okay.
it's a
Yeah,
little.
we can't see that though, so you should.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, the multi-monitors are always tough.
I'm still on one monitor, but I'm starting to think about getting another one.
Oh, I couldn't survive without having a second monitor.
Now, once you start doing all these meetings, you're like, it would really be nice to just have the meeting on one screen.
Hey there.
Hey Al.
Yeah.
Hey Al.
Hi there. Hey, you caught me. I'm outside working on a fence, but anyway, you.
Oh, that's okay. Thought maybe you just got back from golfing or something with the hat on.
No, that'd been a lot more fun. No, it's just time to fix up a fence and repaint it out here. So anyway,
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah. So I have a guy here helping me, so it's good. So
Now you don't make me feel so bad. I was feeling guilty because my wife's been after me to get some stuff done on our fences, and it's like I've just been putting it off. But since you got help, I'm going to say, that's what I need to do.
Just need to bring someone in.
Yeah, bring in some help.
yeah, well, I think Ray, when a few boards the bottom rots off, it's time to do something. So
Okay.
Excuse me for 1 second here.
Mm-hmm.
So Sherry's actually trying to get me to do some preventative maintenance, to like get a coat of stain on the fence to keep it from rotting out.
Yeah. Well, I do a pretty good job, but it's just time,
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. Anyway, you had a good time skiing, I assume.
It was great. It's probably going to be the last day because it's supposed to be mid 70s by this weekend. So,
wow.
Whoa. That, I tell you, when we used to go to Mammoth a lot, in the spring or March, April, oh man, you could ski in a t-shirt. Oh my gosh, that was so great.
Well, these last couple of days, I mean, it was cold. I mean, it was, we actually had a couple of cold fronts come through. We got a little bit more snow, which is good because we need it. Yeah, my dreams of having a mid-April couple of runs is probably gone.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe next year.
Hey, Marcel, I see you in there.
Yeah, long time no see. How you been now?
Yeah, pretty good. So, do you ski in Massachusetts?
I haven't skied in years.
Yeah,
so I used to, but when I had to I used to be a pretty serious runner, and when I developed tendonitis in a knee, I kind of stopped with running and skiing.
Yeah. Well,
Understandable.
yeah.
Hello, Seema.
Hi, Seema.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Is it good afternoon for everyone, or is it still morning somewhere? What's it in?
Oh, I think we're all in the, well, Al, it's afternoon for you too, right?
I'm early afternoon, but you guys, some of you
Let's-
may be early towards
Look-
early evening. So,
Yeah, unless we've got some people from Hawaii or something. I think we're.
oh yeah, right. Hey, Derek, by the way, I stopped down the other night at the venue and talked to them, and
Oh yeah.
it sounds to me like they can really accommodate us, and even the shuttles. If we want some shuttles, they can help us out, particularly local. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of the vibe I got from the email, but it just kind of depends on if they're actively picking someone up from the airport or not at that time, I think.
yeah, right. So I talked to the shuttle people and said, talk to us, don't talk to them in there. So I said, okay.
Well, thank you. It makes my job easier if you're stopping by there. It's a little harder for me to drop in on them.
Yeah, right. Well, I had to be at the airport anyway to pick up our son. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maybe we'll give it a couple more minutes as people join.
Seema, are you on a quarter system or a semester system there at Temple?
Semester.
Okay.
How about you?
No, we're semester as well. So we're kind of like getting ready for that last month push.
I know it's the worst. It's the worst. Novembers and Aprils are really difficult
Yeah.
because then, December and May are unbearable.
Well, I mean, our last day is May 4th, right? So
oh, wow.
yeah, it's early this year.
Yeah, ours is May 6th. I think grades are due May 7th. The commencement is 6th, but grades are due May 8th.
Yeah.
Final grades. And summer 1 starts that following Monday. So
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
yeah, May 10th or something. That's why it becomes brutal, that you're just, it's like PTSD.
Okay, you got a weekend to recover and then back at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our summer starts the 16th, the fall, so we have almost not quite a week and a half off, but.
Yeah, that's not fair. No, that's making me jealous. And,
Sync
and
up with us.
we have no break between summer 1 and 2, except, if 4th of July falls in the right time of the week. And then summer 2. So between summer 2 and fall semester, we have 3 weeks sometimes. That last week before fall semester, forget it. Everyone needs to have a meeting urgently. Then, so technically, if you happen to be teaching summer 1 and 2, then that just makes it for a very difficult summer.
Yeah.
But I brought it to myself. I mean, I can choose not to teach, and there are students who are like, well, can you offer this class then? And, so I can graduate early. So it's my fault.
Oh, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that has that dilemma where it's like, yeah, I don't have to teach, but I put myself in the position and.
Yeah. Because I mean, you end up liking your students, and it would be nice if
That's
they were
amazing
nice,
that
and then
happens,
could say,
know?
Yeah.
I keep telling myself I'll give myself a summer off from teaching, but I've taught every summer since 2011.
Wow.
I haven't settled into doing that yet.
Well, it may be time to start listening to yourself. So
Yeah, I think so.
by the way, right, we're on a semester system, and we're in a cohort group. And so April, early May is when 20 of our students all finish their projects. Oh man, is it a busy time?
That sounds hectic.
A lot.
So anyway.
Okay, well, we're about 5 minutes after start time, so maybe we'll get we'll get going. So thank you everybody for joining our Ask NPSMA presentation series. So this is our first one of 2022. We're having this one on a Wednesday. We usually do Thursdays, 4 to 5 US Eastern time, but I am teaching on Thursdays from 4 to 5:30, which kind of this spring, which kind of messes that up. But the good news is that ends after April. So I think we'll have one next month on a Wednesday, and after that, it would be back to the usual Thursday time. Just a quick plug for the conference. Although we don't have the title and the theme yet for the conference and the workshop, we do have the dates and the location. So Wednesday, November 2nd for our workshop, and then November 3rd to the 5th for our national conference. And I meant to write it, but we will be in San Diego this year. So stay tuned for more details on that. If you are interested in keeping current in the PSM world, you can look for announcements and information in our monthly PSM news. You can subscribe to that with your email. And you can also feature your PSM alumni and graduates in the Chronicle. So see upcoming issues of that for submission information. And we also have the Innovator, where you can share best practices. If you're interested in being more involved in the NPSMA, you can volunteer for committees and really just get in touch with anybody on the board, which is pretty much most people on this session here. Oops. And also we have additional membership benefits if you choose to become a member of the NPSMA, reduced rates to the conference, presentation opportunities for both students and yourself, close relationship with Council of Graduate Schools, which can result in presentation opportunities and grants. And well, case in point, our monthly Ask NPSMA webinars, which also will be on our YouTube channel. And then we also will have virtual recruitment fairs in fall and spring. And we have a Slack channel that you can join so you can interact with our network of program directors and other NPSMA members. We're also on social media, so you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And today's topic for the Ask NPSMA session is increasing diversity, equity, and accessibility in our PSM community. And so I mentioned these are some of the board members who we're expecting to be able to join. I think Kristen said that she would be here, but she would be a little late. But we have Derek and Ray and Al and Seema and Victor present. So Victor, nice to see you here as well.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make it, so that's why I didn't indicate earlier.
No, that works. Thank you for joining. So I think that's everybody who's here. But I think what we want to do is have kind of just a roundtable informal discussion about things that you're doing, ideas you may have, things that you may have seen, things you're doing in your own PSM programs that help to increase diversity, equity, and accessibility. So I have some ideas and things that we've been doing at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, but maybe I think we can open this up for discussion. And let me stop sharing here. Yeah, so would anybody like to open up the discussion with thoughts on diversity, accessibility? I didn't include the word inclusion, but at WPI, we actually have diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here we're including that as well. To be inclusive, we should include inclusion, I suppose. Would anybody have some opening thoughts on this?
So I always have opening thoughts, right? I speak up and too often probably. I just have a general question, kind of like when, as a master's program, right, a dedicated master's program, we are kind of in the position where we are at the mercy of the, of the students who are coming in. And so I guess my question is like, I don't see that, in terms of like, if we're really trying to build diversity within our master's programs, how do we help like build the funnel at the lower levels? Because there's a limit in the number of people that I can hole into the program because there's a limit in the number of people who are currently coming into STEM fields in general, and particularly, I think from the, from a diversity standpoint. So I'm just going to leave it at that and ask the question: is that something we should be thinking about in terms of as a focused master's programs?
Absolutely. We should always be thinking about diversity. I mean, if you look at the faces here, there are 2 women, and so we're contributing to your diversity, which is making you look good, by the way. So absolutely, you want to be thinking about diversity, because the generation that's coming after us is extremely sensitized to this topic. And when they look at leadership, they scorn the lack of diversity, whether it's gender, race, ethnicity, whatever, any of the things that matter to them. When that is not represented, that's the leadership they completely ignore. And so while the transition has happened in a very small way of people not returning to college, I don't know what the reality is with you folks, but at Temple, we were hearing some students just never came back after the pandemic, or tried it and never came back. And then when they look for leadership and the things that are important to them are not present, there'll be no reason for them to hear us beckoning them to come back, right? And unfortunately, though we are in the business of education, we will be viewed as, well, not quite employers, but we will be viewed as an organization that is tone deaf, because they'll be like, why should we come to you? You all look the same, and you don't represent us, and we can't relate to you. So I think in terms of our future, the future of education, because we want to relate to the next generation, I think diversity is and I hear you, what you're saying, it's true. We're at the mercy of who comes to our doorstep, but at least they hear us say, but it's important. And each person is important. I have to say, most of my counseling on diversity, I have to have with our white male students, because they're the ones who get rejected from all of the professional schools they're applying to, because they are white and male. And I have to say, yeah, your scores have to be much higher, unfortunately, because of a history. So you're bearing the sins of the fathers, so to speak, unfortunately. So the times that I've really had to counsel and say something positive, in fact, has been to my white male students, not so much, the other students, they've got grit, they are spunky, they really want to make it, and they will do whatever it takes. So I've said many different things, but I just thought I would answer that question.
I just think as a comment at our school anyway, I think our students reflect the demographics of our local area. And so that's who's in school and taking even our master's program. But what we do see is that some of the more underrepresented, however you want to say it, may not get to leadership positions in major companies. And that's what we're trying to worry about. So just a comment.
I mean, when we think about at the University of Utah, I mean, Utah is a heavily, Caucasian state, but, and we could say that the University of Utah has a similar, looks similar to that population. But the reality is that Salt Lake County has a high Hispanic population that is not represented here on campus. And, that's something I think, as an organization, but also just as STEM professionals, that, we need to look and say, why are these people not coming into these professions? Because these are great professions, right? They are professions where people can really improve their mobility, their social mobility. And so it's one of those things. How do we, as an organization, how do we support these other groups, to do that? So, and I don't know if it's something that we can do just by, promoting STEM and making sure that people see that it's open to, it's not just open to, to white guys, but it's open to all, to everybody, and that everybody can be successful in these fields. And then as you get that success, then Al, I think your point about, the thing about our STEM, about our programs is that we should be focusing on leadership, right? We should be helping people understand how you should be kind of framing things so that you can step into a leadership role.
Right. Right.
Well, and I apologize if somebody said this, and I apologize for being late. But it sounds like maybe I wasn't too late.
You just started.
Yeah, you didn't miss much.
20 seconds after,
Right.
before you joined.
But I mean, Seema, what you said and is actually kind of addressing something that Ray brought up, I think, initially. The fact that the conversations that you're having at the graduate level are more with the white male students than with the underrepresented groups, because those are the ones that have made it to the graduate level, and really the problem is so much further back. So Ray, it really is kind of, it's on undergraduate, it's on high school, it's really addressing that pipeline even earlier. To just, you've got to kind of go few steps back so that it's
Yeah, before I worked at
flowing.
before I worked at the University of Utah, I actually worked for Salt Lake School District as like an after-school group leader when I was in college, and I worked in Rose Park, which is a heavily Hispanic area, and some of the kids in like second grade, they didn't know how to read, and it was really sad, but their teachers, because they had so much pressure, they just move them on to the next grade anyway. So I think it goes way back, and needs to be outreach to those kind of communities however we can.
Yep. When I started at St. Mary's, I actually took over a program that was focused on 7th and 8th grade girls. And we actually brought local 7th and 8th grade students to our campus. They could interact with St. Mary's is a women's college, so they were seeing all of these college-aged women studying chemistry, physics, math, computer science. So they could see, role models down the line and keep cultivating their excitement. At the same time that we had the students doing these hands-on activities, working in the labs with the college students, we also had the parents do programming. So that the parents knew what their daughters needed to be taking as high school students in order to prepare them to study STEM at undergraduate and graduate if they were interested in that, because that's also a crucial piece, is making sure that the students at a young age have the guidance, have the preparation along the points to continue down the path. And that, at least in math, that's all the studies show, is right around that 7th, 8th grade period is when girls tend to check out of math, and then that just hurts their chances of continuing on in science. So that's what we ended up focusing on. But yeah, we had to go all the way back to 7th and 8th grade.
Wow.
So in Philadelphia, we have something called the STEM Equity Collective, and we look at cradle to career. So we're looking at preparation, to your point, Derek, the preparation that goes into preschool so that they are prepared for school, so that they're prepared for reading, and then crucial, what Kristen just mentioned, 7th and 8th grade. You don't have pre-algebra in 8th grade. You're not going to take algebra in high school. You don't take algebra in high school, then you algebra 1 in high school. In your freshman year, you're not taking calculus in 12th grade. If you don't take calculus in 12th grade, guess what? You're not coming into a science and technology school. So the issues go way back in the pipeline. So what we're trying to do as a city, we're working with out of school time places. So places like where Derek worked. We're looking at high school, the school district. We're looking at preschool. We're looking at post-secondary, which is college, which is us. And then we're looking at careers. And we're rattling everyone's cage. We've gone to the city of Philadelphia saying, hey, what are you doing about it? And everyone's got, of course, just to be politically correct and not appear woke, everyone's got a DEI statement, right? I'm sure all of your institutions have a statement on fairness and equity and all of that. But the reality does not reflect it. The statement, those words are great. It's kind of like, when you think about the French Revolution and the American Revolution, and everyone, what did they talk about? Equality, liberty, fraternity, that was the French. And what were the American Revolution? Liberty, right? That was the rallying cry. But what was happening in that time? Transatlantic slave trade was happening right then. And so there's this disparity. We're all saying the right things. We're not doing the right things. And so, there's a real, and this is, I'm sure, happening across the country. Everyone's aware we're saying the right things, but what are we ignoring that will prevent yet another generation from achieving their goals in STEM? Because you ask a little kid, Doc McMuffin, how many of you have heard of that? Is that her name, Doc McStuffin?
McStuffins, I think.
Thank you, McStuffins, because my kids have grown, so I'm no longer
Mine too.
watching.
I have a 3-year-old. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. So Doc McStuffins, please tell us about her. Derek, can you just tell us who she is? She's what's her ethnicity?
I actually don't know.
I think she's a Black physician.
Okay.
I think. And so guess what most young kids want to be right now? They want to be doctors. And guess how we're going to destroy their dreams? By not giving them good qualified math teachers in 7th and 8th grade. So that's the end of it. If they don't, so, some of the radical things we're thinking about in Philadelphia, and it's very difficult for people to accept it, is we're saying, why is calculus important? If you're going to push for calculus, but you're going to put them into a bio major with physics without calculus, then why is calculus important? Why don't we just have them really be strong in algebra and then take them into chemistry, biology, physics, so that they can go to medical school? If we are going to trip people up by these unrealistic expectations, how are we ever going to get diversity? And so the arrogant statement is, well, if they didn't make it into med school, then we really don't want to help them get into med school. But the truth of it is, the amount of adversity they go through, even to make it to high school, they ought to be given a Nobel Prize, some of them, just all of the things that are not in place for them. So anyway, all this to say, in Philadelphia, we have not solved the problem, but we certainly, like Kristen suggested, we have identified and we're trying to own up to our problems so that we can rebuild those broken parts of the pipeline and put people in place who will intentionally select from our diverse candidates, as opposed to let's take the best kid from the best Ivy League. Because the truth behind the Ivy League, and we have one in Philadelphia, University of Pennsylvania, is that 40% of their kids are legacy kids. So where is the diversity and fairness in their recruitment policies? So if you happen to go to an Ivy League, there's a good chance your parents went to an Ivy League, and probably that Ivy League, right? So then how are we calling them the best students? They just are, they had the privilege to get there. So what we say to when we go to GSK, and by the way, GlaxoSmithKline created this initiative, the STEM Equity Collective. We say to their hiring managers, what are your algorithms that you're using? Who are you calling good? What is your standard for that? So we're making trouble everywhere. So people can start asking the hard questions and then answering them in an appropriate way.
I'm going to have to look up your STEM Equity Collective. That sounds like a great kind of environment to branch out beyond just the school.
Well,
Yeah, and it's interesting to point out that, we have a similar issue, I think, to what you were describing, Ray, is that, we want a larger and more diverse population to apply to us. And it really seems like, from what you're saying, Seema, that the key is to go much, much younger to make a societal level change to really make that work.
Yeah, this is really it gets down to, it's a society issue, because I mean, Seema pointed it out. The issue is that we don't have enough qualified math and science teachers at these lower grade levels, because let's just put it bluntly, the career, the rewards for a career, unless you're just passionate about it, are not there. And, if we don't figure out how to bring qualified people into those areas, it's just going to continue to be an issue. And then, from the university level, Seema, you mentioned the whole path that people need to take, junior high, high school, whatnot. And let's just say, all right, well, a lot of students, and I'm sympathetic to this because I did not have a strong math background in high school, didn't have the opportunity. And, but you can make it up in college if the college is willing to recognize that there needs to be a path for people, and provide it, other than saying, oh, you didn't have it, we don't have a path for you anymore. And so, finding that way to support those activities.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on that too, Ray. So, calculus, if we say calculus is necessary and then we don't use it, that's one problem. But if calculus is necessary and students didn't have an opportunity to take calculus, well, then give them the opportunity to take calculus when they need it. That's one thing that we've done in our PSM program, is we've developed, a lot of our students are actually, I don't like the term, but adult learners, right? They're non-traditional students. So they have, even if they had calculus, it's been years and years and years. But a lot of them are, changing careers. And so we have lots of modules that, get them up to speed on exactly what do they need to know from calculus or programming in order to succeed in a master's in data science program. I think, that program is perhaps a little bit easier to take that approach. It's possibly than, some other PSM programs, but, definitely at the undergraduate level, if we're going to increase, the pool, then we need to be increasing the amount of support that we're providing to those students.
I think that's actually groundbreaking to say that you can offer calculus in the master's level. I would love to know more about that, Kristen, because that has tripped up so many of our students who want to take bioinformatics. And I know the directors of the bioinformatics programs, the first thing they look for is linear algebra, some form of, strong quantitative background. If they want to come into computational biology, they won't let them come in without something there. But we've never considered what you just said. So I would love to hear how you did that, and how, for a kid to come into a master's program, you need to have a graduate level class. So how are you teaching a graduate level class calculus, and the university has approved it? I think that's amazing.
If I may interject, I'm sorry. My hired man's out here waiting for me to help him out. So I agree with what's being said, and I think it's an educational issue. I guess I look at it a little bit differently and leave that to some other people. What I'm interested in is the diversity that we have in our PSM programs. We're a PSM organization. The diversity we have, how do we make those better to be more leadership in the workforce? That's my interest, I guess. So with that, I got to go work on a fence.
Thank you, Val. It's good to see you.
Can I just answer that real quick?
Yeah.
The way we are getting our students into leadership is that we're making sure that diverse leadership is recruiting them. So when we have a Black scientist in chemistry coming to the recruitment fairs, he's going to see people differently and he's going to recruit them. And once he decides to become their mentor, so Lamont Terrell in GSK is now their head of recruitment. And it's called a program called University Diversity. So they're not just looking at the same old universities, they're looking across universities saying, there's some kids who would never make it out of a state school or a community college. So they go to those places to recruit talent. So when you start seeing a shift in the leadership, in the recruitment leadership, and then they start recruiting people who are underrepresented intentionally with an interest to make them future leaders, that's how you get leadership. You don't get leadership without mentoring. Every person who's in leadership was mentored, right? Intentionally or unintentionally.
That's
So
exactly right.
So I think, what Lamont is doing is working, and he is intentionally mentoring those underrepresented groups. And we're going to see them in leadership very soon. I tell my students, I expect you guys to be VPs at some point soon, because then I want you to open doors wider for students like you. And I believe it's going to happen. My students are rising. They've already received promotions, but they're still young in their careers. So, they may not be VPs this year, but I expect them to be VPs in the next decade.
So Steve, I was just going to comment. I'm so glad you pointed that out and emphasized that, because, we think about the things we can't control that are downstream, and, focusing on the, how do we effectively mentor students? How do we provide opportunities for other people to come in and mentor students? When we think about the things, I struggle with, how do I effectively use my workforce advisory committee? And this is an area that I should probably be leveraging that more, right? To look for people that can demonstrate, leadership skills across, the entire demographic, because we've had people graduate from our program, and there are other people that, that in the community. And that's an opportunity to, ask them to give back, to contribute to these people, to the mentoring of others. And it's something we can control as a PSM, right? It's something that's within my purview. I don't have to just bemoan the fact that I have no pipeline coming in. It's like, all right, let's, think about what we can do with what's going on now. So I really appreciate those comments you made.
Okay, great. All right.
And maybe to follow up on that, we aren't doing this. We may do this with our grad students. We just started doing with our undergrad math majors. We set up a mentoring program, for a student mentoring, peer mentoring program, with this kind of thing in mind. And so we now have our upper level math majors, juniors and seniors, who are volunteering to mentor freshmen and sophomores, to kind of help provide a sense of community and inclusion, and get this kind of leadership type experience really on the ground floor for them as students.
So, the other thing that Lamont Terrell, actually, we invited, so he's an external advisor, like your advisory board that you mentioned, Ray, and he's a Black chemist. Now he comes from pedigree, so he went to Stanford. Well, he went to Michigan and then went to Stanford, and, essentially is, so he's not the kind of underrepresented student that would come to Temple, but he is happy to recruit from our students, underrepresented or not, and he's happy to provide mentorship. That's something GSK does well. Gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. I forget what I was going to tell you. Oh, Lamont Terrell told us about reverse mentoring. So he came and gave a talk to our DEI group, and he said, look, there are things you don't know and you'll never know because of who you are. So as an Indian woman in my 50s, there are things I'll never know about certain people who are not Indian or women or in their 50s. So reverse mentoring is where junior executives train senior executives or talk about their perspective. Reverse mentoring in diversity is where we bring in our underrepresented students and say, tell us your experience. what would it look like? What are you seeing that we are not seeing, that we have blind spots for? And I think that kind of openness from leadership will then bring good talent to the surface. There are people out there who will just remain stifled because we don't give them voice. But if we intentionally make a place for them and say, we need to hear from you, and maybe even create a survey and say, or have them create a survey and tell us what is it that we're not seeing.
That's cool.
Yeah, I agree with some of these things. I got some great ideas. The idea of giving remedial courses for students coming into the masters, that's something I hadn't thought about. Because I guess what I wanted to say is we've seen a lot of changes actually in the makeup of the students just in the past few years due to COVID. So in our program, we had, before COVID, actually maybe half to 60% or more international students. Then, that switched completely during COVID. So we had mostly domestic students because the travel restrictions. And then after that, then we started seeing also students entering the master's program because they came up with this quick admit track now for students because of the economy. Also during the pandemic, to more students were considering master's degrees. So that was another change in the makeup. And now we're seeing also more students because of the local economy here that are coming back to school to get a master's. So they're not just continuing. And so all of those populations have a little bit different needs and also a little bit different things that we could be doing to help support them, especially now the students that are coming back through other pipelines, either from they've been away in the workforce and are coming back to school, or for whatever reason, they don't have the same support system that the other students have that are continuing students. So those are kinds of things that, that we're looking at. But yeah, that's a good point about using the advisory board maybe as a way to help mentor the students.
With this type of background, like the calculus background that was being discussed, it seems to be something that I think some disciplines, it's cultural that they are able to do that. So to pick on one that I know a fair amount about is statistics. I look at plenty of introductory graduate statistics courses, and you look at the syllabus and say, this is really just a rehashing of a freshman/sophomore level statistics course. It's the same material, possibly even the same textbook. But when you do it with calculus, you'll get this pushback, maybe because it overlaps with what they study in high school. Then again, people study stats in high school too. I think the same can be said of finance training. There's going to be some finance courses that you would see in an MBA program that are going to be similar to what you would see in a sophomore level undergrad course. So there are some disciplines that kind of have this already set up. So I guess it's just a question of how do we borrow from that so that students can get something like calculus in the way that you're mentioning, Kristen.
Well, and I will say the way that I think we got it to work here is it's not a math class. It's math, but the title is in our data science. It has a data science prefix. So that's how we can get away with it, I think, at the, because it's absolutely not a graduate level math class, but it is a graduate level data science class.
Right.
It's a master's level data science because, we go super fast. We focus on the applications. So, you can make an argument that it is at the graduate level, just not in the math world.
I was just going to comment that align exactly with that. So we have, within our program, I teach an applied stats course, right? And I don't try to make it a math class because I'm not a mathematician, I'm a chemist, but it's very much an applied course. And it's basically trying to show how these things are used in the real world, but also I introduce a programming language at the same time. So it's, a little bit beyond what you would do in a normal math class. But I see a lot of other, like, I'm not the only one, right? There's a biostats class. There's another like stats class for educational psychology. I mean, there's a bunch of applied courses that would probably borrow a lot from an undergraduate thing. And maybe we should be thinking about doing that for the, for a quote unquote calculus level course, right? Because why do we want students to know calculus? We want them because we want them to be able to apply it to some of these very specific problems, right? If you want to talk about coupled chemistry equations, you need to have ordinary differential equations and be able to do that, right? Well, you can't do that without calculus. And so, thinking about how we can incorporate some of these applied topics into our work, I think is where we can, because then again, like you said, you move quickly. And so not saying, oh, you can't come in because you don't have the background. It's like, could we find a way to, get people up to speed quickly? And I think the answer is if you do it well, you can. And we should take the lead in that.
Yeah, that reminds me. So we have a Python, introductory Python class, which is a graduate level class. But most computer science students would be like, what is this? Because I mean, they take Python in freshman year, right?
They don't take Python. They're writing in C++ and Java.
well, some of them are. So we do
True.
offer Python to our computer science students. And because all our computational biologists prefer Python to C++, they are, we needed to develop a class. So first we sent them to computer science, and they created a class for us called scripting for business and science. And that had like one week of Java, 1 week of C++, 1 week of Python, but that wasn't enough. By the time they came into the real coding class where they were doing real projects in genomics, they didn't have enough Python. So we then developed our own Python class. There was argument and pushback from the computer science, undergrad faculty, like, what are you doing? So what we called it was biological applications in Python. So they couldn't argue that, because like you said, you rename it and you make it a graduate level class. So, and of course it goes very fast. And by the time they come to computational genomics, they're all weeping, it's the hardest class in the bioinformatics program, but they make it. So
but we can't feel guilty about this, because it's what I'm going to pick on the business schools for a moment here, because I see like the business schools are reaching in and they're doing, business analytics, and they're advertising these as STEM programs. And they're, they have there's a business database class over here in our business school. And it's like, how is this not supposed to be in the School of Computing? Well, they're really looking at the applications of databases, where the School of Computing is looking at the theory and like, how do you build these things up from scratch and all this other stuff that goes in with it. So it's just a totally different mindset. And, I think as professional programs, we're not looking at doing academic research in databases and all this stuff. We're looking at how can we get people to have the technical competencies to understand what's going on and use them effectively. All right. So I'm glad to see I'm not the only person who does this applied stuff. Yeah.
No, it helps that our data science program is housed in the math department. So we didn't have to do any back and forth with a turf war over teaching calculus for data scientists.
Yeah, so we have this cybersecurity program, and we're going away from the diversity conversation, but we have a cybersecurity program. The name was already taken by the business school. And we're like, how are you teaching security? You don't go into the dark web. You don't teach them ethical hacking. Well, they took the name first. So we had to call our program Cyber Defense and Information Assurance. And it's such a mouthful, what a nightmare to market. If we had thrown in a cool term like data science or something, we'd be able to attract. But I mean, yeah, every term in cybersecurity was taken by School of Engineering that made the hardware, School of Business that was, teaching data analytics. And so then the people who were really teaching the true security had to, But anyway, let's get back to diversity.
But bringing it back to the diversity, I mean, I think these discussions about how to be to provide opportunities for people to come into these programs is important, right? Because we're doing, we're not the traditional academic programs. We have an opportunity to do things a little bit different. I think we can make these changes, and people will let us do it because we're doing something different. And so we should embrace that and try and leverage it to help as many people as we can coming into these industries, because they're great industries for people to have careers in.
Absolutely.
Other thoughts or ideas?
What should we do as an organization?
I think we should make sure that we recruit for all leadership levels, and look for diversity in our leadership levels, and definitely make it as a, create a statement and then walk in it too, so that we're not just we're not lily white, and we're not mostly male or mostly female for that matter. That we're representing the leadership that exists within the PSM programs all across the country. So maybe even on our homepage have a STEM equity statement, saying that
I was just wondering, yeah, we should do something like that. Sorry, Seema, keep going.
No, I rambled, but no, that's what I wanted to say.
I also will add, I know we talked about this with the Workforce Advisory Council Committee, whatever WAC is, looking at the representation on that body and making sure that it's also, representative and reflective of, what we would like to see.
Yeah, and even if it sounds like we're trying to check some boxes, we have to do it intentionally before it becomes natural.
Right.
Because once we bring people in, others will come. It's so true. And about 20 years ago, the pastor of our church, who was Black, would go to these larger meetings, and which were led by white pastors. And he said, "Where are the Black pastors here? In your leadership, where's the Black?" So they put him in the leadership. And today that organization actually happens to be mostly Black, but and Black churches have come, but it started with the one guy, right? He brought in people, and because he was there, others trusted the process, and they said, well, we can work with this organization because they're real about it. So this was like a Mid-Atlantic Leadership Conference group, and that's just an example of, it really takes people building connections with people, and that's what will accelerate. So I'm not saying remove people from leadership. You have a leadership team, grow it, and grow it intentionally, saying we're looking for a Hispanic woman, we're looking for an African-American man, and let's go find the best one there is out there, and let's put them in here because they're going to attract really good talent, and they're going to bring perspective that we totally lack, right? Let's go to a historically Black college and say, do you have a PSM program? And why don't you? And how can we help you build one? And then say, and would you like to come into our lead? Pick someone, and we'll have to do 2 or 3 tries and iterations of this. But I think actually creating positions that need to be filled will be a good starter.
No, I think you're right. I know you're right. It's the idea of just being intentional. It's good to remember that.
Do we have any?
As a member of the board, I think we have some work cut out for us.
Yeah. Do we have any HBCUs in our
There's not
group?
any that I can think of, but I'd have to look through the whole list.
Because there's North Carolina State, one of those East North Carolina.
Might be North Carolina A&T. I'd have to check. I'd have to check the list. But
and maybe we just need to go to, we had a student come from Stillman Stillman is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or someplace down south. I apologize, I don't know. And he said, hey, why can't we create a 4+1 between Stillman and Temple? Because he came to Temple. I mean, two schools that no one would have heard of at the other side. Would folks from Stillman have heard of Temple? No, and vice versa, right? And but so he was the one initiating this. Then the pandemic hit, so nothing happened. But within our 50-mile radius, we have a couple historically black colleges, and maybe as board members, we can each go to the one HBCU that's near us and say, hey, have you considered building a master's program, and can we show you how? And why don't you build it within your school, and come look at how we're doing it, or can we create a joint program or whatever? And then, bring in leadership from there, because, people are forming groups all over, and we want to make sure that our group is inclusive, and that, we're not excluding people unintentionally.
I'll take a look at our list and see if we have any. But...
Any other thoughts or ideas?
There might be others, actually, maybe Hispanic serving, for example. Actually, Texas A&M just became a Hispanic serving a designation.
Cool.
Great.
I don't think we have any schools that are designated, but I mean, Utah Valley University here is like one of the, it may not be the largest undergraduate institution in our area, serves the greater valley, and it's definitely more accessible. They have a program that allows people to move from the Salt Lake Community College directly in, easy transfer of credits, all those things that help people move through their undergraduate program. They've thought about as they've built up that school. And I mean, for us, that's an opportunity for us here at the University of Utah.
There was somebody who spoke at the conference briefly. She was probably in the same workshop or whatever panel that I got stuck into a panel right at the end. And there was a lady who spoke, and she had recruited all of the Hispanic students. That's amazing.
I think it was Stephanie Pierce at Texas Women's
College.
Texas Women's, and they had this amazing outreach, right? I don't think they were a designated Hispanic college, are they?
No, but I think what she was able to do, I think, was get a grant, an NSFS STEM grant, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually asking Tim if he could give me just synopses of all of those success stories from the conference, specifically because I wanted to highlight all of those success stories, especially that grant
one was amazing,
because I think that is something that could be duplicated at a lot of our institutions and a lot of our PSMs.
And it's unheard of, like, to have that many Hispanic students, that's amazing. I mean, that's just fantastic. So have you guys seen this picture on diversity that they often use when they have diversity talks? I'm trying to see if I have it somewhere. I've put it on the LinkedIn page. I helped create the LinkedIn page for this, for the work environment work group. So we're 4 big work groups in the STEM Equity Collective. Could I share screen and I'll show you this picture?
Yeah, just one sec.
I'm sure I have it somewhere.
Okay, you should be able to share now.
Okay, so this is that page. And unfortunately, we have this other picture of kids right here. But do you see the first picture on the lack of equity? There is something happening over the fence. The little guy has a box, but he still can't see. The other guy, has the same box, what you can't. So here's a tall guy looking through the fence. In the second picture, everyone has an equitable opportunity to look over the fence. And the role of the STEM equity movement or the equity movement should be this final picture, which is, let's not have a fence where people can't look. Just, create and so essentially all of these three guys are looking at a baseball game. That's what they're looking at. And this last picture is saying you don't really need to give special measures for everyone to equitably access this view, right? It should be such a culture that everyone should be equally able to, regardless of where they're at in life, have access to whatever's being offered. And that's a good visual. And of course, in this visual, I've seen many versions of this visual. So, here in this, everyone appears to be white. In that, we have different colors, and the little guy is black, or they are all brown or whatever. The point is that inequities exist. And this is an inequity of age, right? So you happen to be the little brother, you're not going to see as much of the game as the big brother who happens to be tall. But there are inequities for all kinds of reasons, not just age. And if we can remove barriers so that none exist, then everyone has an equal opportunity. But if barriers exist, like the ones we've talked about, math and not appropriate training of teachers, etc., then these inequities will be sustainable. Unfortunately, they'll continue for the next few generations.
Okay, well, I think we're just about at the end of the session. Kristen, do you want to say anything? Any updates or announcements or anything like that?
Well, I don't think I have any announcements or updates. But I definitely think that as an organization, we need to revisit this topic again. Maybe have another Ask NPSMA
For sure.
almost. But I think at a minimum it would be good. I don't think there's an NPSMA DEI statement.
I think so.
I think we should talk about creating something like that, putting something on our newly revamped website over the months. This is, it's a big problem. It's an important problem that we need to keep at the forefront, I think.
Agreed. Okay, any closing thoughts?
Sorry, I've got to go to another meeting, so my thoughts are gone.
So thank you, everybody, for this discussion. This was a great discussion, and this will be posted on our YouTube page. So this should be available to the NPSMA community for anybody who wants to watch this.
Yeah.
You make sure to include the links that SEMA put in there in like the description, so that I think those are really,
I can definitely do that.
Yeah, thanks everybody for
Thank
the
you all.
conversation.
Well, thank everybody. Have a good afternoon or evening, depending where you
Thanks,
are.
Marcel.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.